so many times everybody's fighting for the spotlight or the stage and
Mm.
feel a need to be heard. And not to say that there aren't times when that's important, because it is, because your message or the information that you have or you need to convey is important. But there's also, I just think the best leaders are ones that truly, genuinely, and sincerely listen.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast, where we interview coaches and leaders to find out not just what they do, but how they do what they do. Becoming the best version of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it.
Today we are joined by Associate Head Men's Basketball Coach of UTSA, Mike Peck. In his sixth season at UTSA, Coach Peck is their guard development coach, while also assisting in game preparation in all aspects of the Roadrunner program. He has coaching experience at the professional, collegiate, and high school levels, including 6 years at Findlay Prep in Henderson, Nevada, where he spent his final 5 years as head coach. His teams combined for a 157-8 record, including a perfect 33-0 season in 2009 and 3 ESPN National High School Championships. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
What is one quality you see in leaders that coaches, players need to cultivate in their own habits and actions?
Great question, Matt. And I think one of the things that I've always felt and I've tried to do is listen with the intent to understand. So many times everybody's fighting for the spotlight or the stage and feel a need to be heard. And not to say that there aren't times when that's important, because it is, because your message or the information that you have or you need to convey is important. But there's also, I just think the best leaders are ones that truly, genuinely, and sincerely listen and have an interest and are listen with the intent to understand versus just hear things. And I just think that's so important, because you always, when you flip the script and put yourself in the other person's shoes, you know how that feels. That's how you want to feel. You know what I mean? So that I think the best ones have done that and do that, at least the ones I've observed and seen and been fortunate to learn from.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson, I think, said you want to act as if everyone you meet can teach you something. Like they have something that you can get from them. Being on a college coaching staff, that ability to sit and listen, but then also be prepared. How does that come into play for you and with your other coaches?
Well, I think that it's like I say, everybody has a voice in our program. Steve's great about, input from everybody, wants it, almost requires it. And I think the other part that goes with that, though, is, and it's hard because there's sometimes it's kind of like players. When you look at players, and this, having coached as long as you have and played, there's some things you can't like feel. Get a feel for the room, get a feel for your audience. If the tone is a little bit more subdued and quiet, well, you don't want to come in there banging drums and beating your chest. You know what I mean? Those are things that I think are so important that, I think our staff is really good in that regard. But that's, all through Steve's leadership, and he gives us a lot of freedom and a lot of input. So I think that's valuable, is just kind of knowing when not to pull back, push forward type stuff. And that, and some of that becomes with how deep or how connected is your relationships within your staff. How long have you known each other? That's so important and so critical. And for those things, we're fortunate because we've our staff has been together since we got here 5 years now, and we have history beyond that. So that really has really helped.
What's one thing that makes your program different?
This, and again, this goes back to, Steve and as, as a head coach, your staff and your players and everybody that's around that supports it, your administration, your vision in their execution or their help in the execution of it. And this is one thing that Steve always says in every recruiting visit we have, whether it's on a Zoom, in person, or what have you. This is the one time that he uses the word I. Everything else is we. And that, he got that from Coach Kruger. Everything is about we, ours, and us. But this is the one time that he will say I. As the head coach, he says it is his responsibility to create an environment where the players look forward to coming to practice every day. And he said that he takes that personal, and that is his personal responsibility to do that. Because if there's ever a time where he's not enjoying it or they're not enjoying it, somebody's doing something wrong. And either they've got to look at themselves or he's got to look at himself and say, I got to figure it out and get it right. So I think you don't hear many say that, and him and I kind of go back and forth, not back and forth, but I always say, I love that. And I think that's why our players have just embraced the culture. But I also, knowing that it's like life. We all love what we do, but within what we do, there are elements, times, and some things that flat out you're just not going to enjoy.
Right.
Like I love my job and I wouldn't trade it for the world. But you know what? I hate doing expense reports when I come back from traveling. But guess what? If I love my job, I can't just not do those, because if I don't do it, like
you won't have your job. You won't have your job. Yeah.
He's going to come in and say, hey, do those expense reports. Yeah. And I blow him off again. He's going to say, hey, I'm not going to tell you again. You know what I mean? It's just part of the job. So that's like practice. There's going to be an element of practice, whether it's defensively or a conditioning type deal where players, they're not going to enjoy it, but they got to understand the value in it.
So I love the idea of wanting to create an environment where that players enjoy coming to the gym, coming to practice. What are some things? And because the whole idea too with this podcast is it's not what we do, but how we do what we do that's important. And so how do you create, what are just some little things and nuggets just to make that experience more fun?
I think the one thing, Steve, this is one area, Steve and I philosophically are on the same page in so many things. One thing that we really, we're not as on the same level or page is conditioning. I'm a huge conditioning guy. I'm about, just really, really and it, not so much just making guys run, but you get so much more out of the mental component of that than you do just the physical, but it's also the physical. And I just know I've always felt and believed if we can play our 5 best players longer than you can play your 5 best players, we're going to win. And I just think that conditioning is the root of everything. Yeah. And he likes, Steve likes to have conditioning kind of come from actually playing the game and going through a practice. So instead of putting them on a line, which I get, that's redundant, and it sometimes that's not going to take. But when you're going through a drill and go so hard that you make yourself tired. And some players have a maturity and a mindset where they will do that, and they understand that. But there's also some guys that they're going to coast. They're going to only do as much as you allow or tolerate. Yeah. And that's where I always, the ones, if you condition the ones that are mature, they're going to understand and they're going to mind it. Yeah. And then you're going to get the ones who don't, you're going to get them where they need to be. So, but he doesn't, there's not a lot of punishment. We don't use that. That's a negative tone. Yeah. I think his big thing, we watch so much film. His thing is 2 to 1, 2 positives to 1 negative. Nice. Film is going to be about what we did right and what, as opposed to what we didn't do or did wrong or that was bad. He just doesn't want to come out of a film session where guys are like, geez, I didn't do anything right. I'm not any good. So that's a huge way that we kind of building confidence, making guys feel good.
Helping the players protect their confidence even more. I think because, golly, that's got to be a challenge or just something that he has to really commit to, and as a staff you got to commit to, because our eyes automatically go to the negatives, and those are the things that we're drawn to address. but when you choose to focus on positives, yeah, I can see how a film session now is, golly, is it going to be me today? Instead of thinking like that, it's, man, I'm about to see something good. That's powerful.
Exactly.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Biology. What's your BSA score? The Biology Skill Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NIA and NJCAA to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 10-minute, 100-shot test can be taken for free today on the Biology mobile app. Elevate your game. What are the non-negotiables in your program?
One of the things, the biggest thing is, we always talk about when with young kids, be a good teammate, and Steve says that we say that every day. So when a guy goes to the floor, there better be, if there's, we got 15 on the roster, 13, there better be 12 or 14 sprinting to help that guy up. Our video guy takes every day in practice and games, he clips those segments out and adds them to a file that shows that. And that's the first thing I run when a guy hits the floor. I go help him up. Just immediately. It's just got to be a natural reaction where there's no glitch or hesitation in it. And sometimes we'll show that on film where guys get caught up in their emotions and their feelings a little bit and they can't get outside of them. And the guy goes down and only 2 guys went over there, and then that's just not us, guys. That's not what we're going to do. So that's one thing that's a non-negotiable. Not going to walk to huddles, whether it's, coming to the sideline on a media timeout, or if we doing half court execution offensively, when that play's over, huddling up back at half court, not going to walk. You sprint to the huddle. So those are 2 things that really, really stand out. And just, everything's about, being a good teammate and just, making that locker room a place that, that's an environment that embraces the culture of team and together.
I think, things that you can do to keep the me monster down in players. Like as soon as something negative happens to me, because my teammate is on the floor, I allow myself to forget about that, and I have to just go and embrace him. So in high school, I think we're trying to get them to do those same things, and it can be a struggle to get those habits. How long or how tough is it to get those habits with college players?
Little, again, every level that you go up, it's a little different because the maturity level, they've got more maturity. They've seen and experienced more things. So I don't want to say. I would, in a general sense, I would say it gets a little easier each level up because, you weed out the guys that aren't one capable of going to that next level or aren't interested in that next level. So there's a level of seriousness about it. So their approach becomes a little bit more professional, business-like, or serious with very intentional. And I think that helps. But there are times, every individual is different, and you're going to have some individuals that it just takes them longer. I always used to say, some guys get it pretty quick. Some guys will get it beyond their time with you. Some guys may never get it.
Yeah.
It may take their boss giving them the pink slip or their wife handing them divorce papers before they wake up.
Yeah. And that's where I think we're no matter what, we're planting those seeds. And we love to be able to see them now, have a harvest now, but man, hopefully at some point it gets there. What's your favorite shooting game?
My favorite, it's really simple, but I got it when I was with the Trailblazers, is it's just 5 spots, 25 shots. So 3-pointers. They did this at the end of practices. All the players would do. Dame would do it. CJ would do it. Coach Stotts had in the practice facility, had a big bell mounted on the wall, and it had the rope where kind of the old school on the farm bell, and it ring the bell. So you get 5 shots from the corner, wing, top, other wing, other corner. You just get 5 at each spot. Your goal is 20 out of 25. when you get 20 out of 25, you get to ring the bell. And
Love
so
that.
guys would do that all the time, and ringing that bell was a big thing. You know what I mean? They wanted to be able to ring the bell. And you guys that weren't very good shooters would, what you don't realize, what players don't realize is, oh, they get so close, 18, 17, 19. So they end up staying there, and they end up at the end of the day probably shooting 400 or 300 extra shots without realizing they put those extra shots in. And so now you're getting them in the gym working on their shots. And I always thought that was neat. And we do it here, and guys love it.
I love the idea of ringing the bell, and I gotta imagine, like, what's always cool is to hear NBA players demonstrating their joy and love for competing and in practice and things. Like the idea of Damian Lillard going over and ringing the bell, and another pro sitting there going, God, I'm not ringing the bell. That competitive fire, the fact that, I mean, obviously we know they're pros and they're great.
Yep.
But the joy of doing something like that, like, that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
What are the off-season expectations for a player?
Really simple. Get in the gym. Get in the gym. Get in a gym. Shoot the ball. I did a FaceTime with one of the kids we signed, a freshman out of Vegas. He actually, when we signed him, he was 6'3", 185, and then obviously quarantine, and they didn't have a high school season in Vegas. He's 6'5", 210 now. And it's like, but again, I think he's going to be a pretty darn good player. And I FaceTimed him 2 weeks ago, and I said, hey, we caught up, AZ, what's going on? And talked about some stuff. And I said, okay, look, here's the deal. I said, I am the least patient on this staff with freshmen. I'll be the first to admit it's not fair. It's not nice. It's not whatever, but I'm just going to be honest with you. Here's what you need to do before you get here in June. Number one, 3 days a week, you need to get on a track or some turf. You need to get in shape. Now, I understand you're not going to be in peak game shape, but you have to have a base level of conditioning. Because if you get here in June and then during workouts you get tired, I'm going to be mad. I'm going to be upset when you go down to your knees and you can't make it through a workout. So that's number one. Number two, 6 days a week, you better be shooting the basketball. And on the lowest day, you better be making 300. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if you can't make a shot, you can't be on the floor for us. If they don't have to guard you, we can't play you. So you've got to be able to make a shot. Those are the two things. And that's it. Well, two things doesn't sound like much, but that's a lot.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Be warned, understand, I'll send you some shooting drills. I'll send you some conditioning stuff. 3 days a week for that, I think, is a good base. And I'm not trying to tell you to go kill yourself, but just have a base level.
Yep.
And then get in the gym and shoot the basketball, be able to make shots.
Yeah, great players are never out of shape. They always have a level of, like you said, a base level of shape that obviously in season shape, hard to get, easy to lose. And so you just keep that for that amount of time. I love hearing that those you're helping those incoming freshmen just know that. And then with shooting, I think if a player is listening to this, like, here is, as high school coaches, we're always telling them, this is what is expected and this is what happens at that next level. But here is a Division I coach literally saying 300 6 days a week is the minimum. And I think that's really powerful. How and when do you meet with your players?
Good question. Since when Steve and I were together with Coach Kruger at UNLV, Coach Kruger did this. He did it when he went to Oklahoma. We do it since we got here. It's just always been a thing. I did it when I was at Finley. Each coach has 3 to 4 players kind of in their core group that we're assigned to. We're kind of, not that we deal only with those 3 or 4, but that's our group. Like if we have a Sunday night meeting, we'll sit with each one of those individually and say, "Hey, how's your week look academically?
Hmm.
You know, what do you got coming up?" I'll have their syllabi and I'll know, but I want them to tell me and I want them to know. So it's just another level of protection in terms of checks and balances outside of our academic advisor who does and handles all that, just so that we know and that they know and that they know we know, so they can't slide. But also kind of from a life skills standpoint, hey, check in on them. You know what? Hey, when it like now, here's the end of the term. Hey, when's so and so? When's Jordan going home? You know, okay, is his mom coming to get him? Is he going with a friend, how's he getting home? He'll be back when for summer session one, just that information so that Steve knows and he kind of has an idea that, hey, he's got other things going, but we know what and where our players are and what's going on in their lives. We also connect with their parents occasionally just to reach out and say, hey, everything's good here. Is anything going on that we should know about or you need us to know about? But also informally, those aren't necessarily scheduled. We're big on seeing our guys, eyes on our guys kind of daily. We encourage them since day one, get in the gym. We finally have guys that what I would term as kind of gym rats.
Yeah.
They're, if there's an off day, that ball's going to be hitting the floor. There's going to be guys periodically throughout the day that get in the gym. If it's just shooting free throws or what, but they're getting in there. So when we walk by, hey, what's going on? We'll talk to them, visit with them. I personally like to occasionally grab a guy and go get lunch or dinner. One of the things that I really am big on is the shooting drills like the one we talked about. If anybody gets a 25 out of 25, that's an automatic steak dinner on me. Automatic. And I love it because, you get some guys that'll get 10 for 10. And I always chirp while they're shooting. I usually pass and have a manager rebound and I'll say, I'm not worried about it. He's got a long way to go. And then I won't say anything at the beginning. And then maybe they get to 13. And I'll say, oh, he's going for that steak dinner. And I'm not kidding you. As soon as they hear that, they miss their next shot. And it's like that, but that's what I call clutch pressure shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And what is it in a game? That's clutch and pressure. You have to be able to take that on and handle that and get to that, and you find out some dudes just aren't clutch. They don't have that clutch factor.
Good for you to know, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And then the ones that do, you're like, okay, this is a dude now. This is a guy, game on the line. We need to run, counter action back to him for a three. So those are just ways that I like to engage with our guys individually, informally. But it's not always scheduled and regimented. We pop in the dorms or where they live once in a while, just check on them, just see what's going on.
So COVID there's been so many challenges with it the last year and a half, but I'm interested to see if there are some positives in your mind that have come, not from positive from a pandemic, that sounds bad, but things in coaching that now, we've been forced to kind of do this and adjust this way, but we really like it. What are some things?
That's a great question and a great perspective. I think one of the things we when we would huddle up at the end of a practice or a workout or whatever, Steve's really big on engaging the student athletes on campus and being part of the community in the campus environment. Go to a women's soccer game, go to a volleyball game, show support because we want them to come to our games.
Right.
We were always trying to, if there was a student athlete, some type of rally in the evening in the convocation center, we encouraged our guys, and representatives from our program to go and be visible and be seen and be part of it. Well, now during the pandemic, we're saying, go home and isolate. Don't interact. Don't make sure you're not going to other apartments where there's more than 4 or 5 people with other sports. You know what I mean? Just go home and isolate and seclude yourself and shut the door, So it was like, golly, that's so anti what we're about. But at the same time, what it did do is it we said, hey, this is our circle. This is our immediate circle that, or, this is our tier that we've got to protect.
Mhm.
We can't. We got a season on the line. You guys want to play games? Okay, we don't like it. None of us do, but this is the way we've got to do it if we're interested in playing games. And so I think that, to a certain extent, gave us a feeling of, not I don't want to say us against the world, but it's us, that it truly magnified us as a team.
Mhm.
This is our core unit. This is our group. This is us. We're the ones that are responsible for us. We're the ones that are going to make it happen. We're the ones. So I think in that regard, it was good in some aspect.
I can see that. Yeah.
But outside of that, it was a, we've been going since July 29th, pretty much uninterrupted. And, our hats off to our guys for doing everything we needed to do. We didn't have a COVID interruption.
Wow. That's impressive.
The only interruption we had was we missed our game at Charlotte because of the storm.
Oh, okay.
I mean, go figure. In South Texas, during the pandemic didn't create the issue. It was the friggin' winter storm.
That's right.
So I think it was a grinding year, but nonetheless, our hats off to our guys for doing a tremendous job.
Yeah. One thing that I did because of the pandemic that I will continue to do is, so every year, you have to have a parent meeting in high school. You have to bring them to the gym, and you have to inconvenience everybody for about an hour or so. Have them. Yep. I Zoomed it, and they could be at home on their couch with everybody. And I will, no matter what, when things get back to normal, I will continue to Zoom my parent meeting, because I got the most participation in it than I ever have before, because they didn't have to go anywhere. So, but kind of a little positive there.
That's huge. Absolutely.
Yeah. Coaches, the one thing that every team needs is confident shooters. The last 8 years at Grapevine Faith, our teams have averaged 354 made threes each season. I love getting to share with coaches how our shooters train, and more importantly, how they think. If you would like to enhance your shooting culture at your school, contact me directly at jamodipodcast@gmail.com. The speed round is going to be 30 seconds, and I'm going to fire quick questions to you. And first thing that pops in your head, just blurt it out.
Okay.
Real simple. Ready? Favorite ice cream flavor?
Superman.
For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Shot clock.
Texting or talking?
Oh, talking.
Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Invisibility or super strength?
Oh, super strength.
If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
Oh, high school.
Okay. Favorite junk food?
Oh, pizza.
Love that. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
1.
Has that ever changed? Has it been more in the past, or you get?
No, it's consistently 1.
Consistently 1.
Maybe 2.
Okay. Last one. Godfather or Star Wars?
Godfather.
Nice. Majority of coaches are Godfather. They did not grow up with my dad, who was a sci-fi guy that I grew up on Star Wars. I love Godfather, but
yeah.
Coach, man, go ahead.
I'm not a sci-fi guy, really.
Yeah, not many have been. Yeah, it's a lot of Godfathers, but thank you so much for being on with me. And I learned a ton listening to you. I love the way you communicate and your approach to things. And
well, I thank you for thinking of me just to be on this. And I think, again, going to your practice, I know it was a day after a game, so you guys watch film and stuff, but just the environment with your program and how you, again, communicate with your players and your delivery, to me, was refreshing, because one, it was thought out. You can it was genuine and real. You know what I mean? To me, there's so much, and you're into it. You're not fitting your program into your life. You're putting your life into your program, and that can be seen within a minute of being there. And so many guys are just fitting the program into their lives, and and there's nothing wrong with that. I shouldn't say that. That's not
Right.
Some busy lives, different priorities, but you can clearly see you have a passion and a genuine passion for your program and your players.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Coach, for that. I appreciate it. Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.